Hello. So for my first real video I'd like to talk about disagreement as a philosophical standpoint. But first, before we start talking about all this, we should probably start by explaining what disagreement is. So the simplest way I can put it is disagreement is the bias of one person confronting the bias of another person. And to explain bias, it's to say one's inclination to believe something that already corresponds to one's life. Say a rich man and a poor man have a €5 note in their hand. The bias here would be obviously the amount of money one already owns. The rich man has just a €5 note. To him this is benign. But to a beggar, to someone with no home, probably no money at all, a €5 note is amazing. I mean, that's like 3 loaves of bread and probably butter as well. That's huge. That's going to make you survive another day or two, which is mad. And when you take these things into consideration, that's when the biases come in. For the same actual physical object, which is unchangeable unless you set fire to it, it's still just a €5 note. People will be biased onto what it can do. So that sets up what I'm going to talk about. Disagreement is the way our biases affect our actual thoughts. We don't create biases, we live them, we bring them up inside ourselves. Most of them are things that we don't even take into consideration. I will defend artistry in any form, no matter what anyone says, even though I wholeheartedly disagree with a lot of what the artists have to say. Even though I shouldn't, and that's how I become biased. I am biased by art is amazing no matter what. That's not true. A lot of art can be used for the wrong purposes. Disagreement. I'm going to talk about what it's done for good and what it's done for bad. In good, disagreement brings to competition, mostly. And I'm going to use this as a basis, competition. Disagreement leads to competition. So, for instance, you and your friend have views about feminism. Yes, I'm going there. One of them believes in the wage gap, the old wage gap phenomenon with the 33%, and party B believes in the fact that that's not true. And that's where the competition starts, when there's a disagreement, because you both have knowledge about different things, biases as well. Say party B is a woman and party A is a man. The man is defending the 33% wage gap and the other is defending the 3% wage gap, I believe. Don't quote me on this. This could lead to woman bias, where the man sees the woman... It's not called that. Whatever. Where the man believes that the woman is wrong because... and she's not educated about it enough because she doesn't want to learn about it, or he believes that she's more inclined to believe the first thing that she hears, anything like that. And this sort of disagreement can lead to something good. Even when it comes to this kind of situation, one of them is going to learn something. Eventually, even the losing party, usually it's the losing party that learns more about a debate coming out of it, because you've learnt more than what the person already knew everything about. That sentence made no sense. I'll keep it in the edit. This can lead to good because it leads to knowledge. On a bigger scale, the Cold War, throughout all the terror and bad that it gave to us, war, napalm, Agent Orange still affecting the region of Vietnam, North Korea, it also did a lot of good to our society. Without the space race, we probably wouldn't be predicting going to Mars, which is the second furthest planet from us, in 2020. Because the space race was a competition on political bias. On one half you had the Western bloc and you had the Eastern bloc, and these two political views led to very complicated situations, especially for the Germans, but in the end also gave us space exploration, also gave us the computer, gave us internet. Well, I mean, the computer started before, but modern computers wouldn't be as highly developed as they are today if it weren't for the intellectual race that was the Cold War. And this is my transition, that a lot of competition can also lead to bad, where biases by their very nature cause us to be very defensive about ourselves, because our biases will also make us want to protect our knowledge, because that's what our brain says is right. This is where we need to start really putting into consideration how biases work. On one half you have the selfish biases, if I might call them that, I'll explain it afterwards, and the selfless biases. The selfish biases will be the one that really just protect you, like what you think is good for your body, how you think you should exercise, how you think you should think, like religions and that sort of things. This is something that really people understandably get riled about, but shouldn't. On the other hand, you have selfless biases, which is what other people should think, what other people should eat, what other people should do. It's not about you, it's about them. And I believe that's where the line stands. It stands at what is you and what is them. Then you have the ones that are kind of in between, when you think that you should do what they do, or they should do what you do. I'm not going to go there. The line is selfish and selfless. The war in the Middle East is a tragedy that has killed millions, and even outside of the media that we see, tragedies every scale are happening. This is fact. There is war going on and it needs to stop. It is terrible. Biases come into this when people talk about the war, though, in itself. When did it start? How did it start? Who started it? These aren't questions that we are asking ourselves enough. This leads to disagreement. Very often, people will viciously fight over the little knowledges that they have that concern them and the other. The problem with this is that we're not concentrating the debate, and this is why it's terrible, because we're not focused. We're just saying, oh, it's the Muslims, oh, it's the Americans, oh, it's the fact that the right are coming into power, so we can't keep the people. It just makes no sense. We're not focusing because we don't have facts. If we focused more on the general facts and then debated and discussed and disagreed about these things, the whole situation would be more understandable. Thing is, war in the Middle East started years ago. Before the 19th century, there were already problems in the region. Then there's the question of Israel, the question of Syria, the question of the Kurds, Afghanistan, all those regions just in turmoil for years. And now we see the problem coming to a halt. We can't debate about it anymore because everyone disagrees. We have individual standpoints where everyone is fighting their own idea, their selfish idea, not the selfless one, which is why we should concentrate more on the facts of the evils going on, the many evils going on. It's everyone's fault. It's no individual. It's no person that we can point to and say, it's you. It's you. The same goes for how we treat the Americans and police violence. Although that's a bit more simple to understand. It's still a complicated matter, but we can see the statistics because we see them a lot more often. Yes, it just so happens to be that black people get killed quite a lot on the streets. White people also get killed on the streets. People like to use their biases to pull out and put together numbers. I wouldn't say at random because they are real numbers most of the time, but the way that they just glue the numbers together illogically or just to motivate their own political views or their own biases is just heart-wrenching, especially for someone like me who really enjoys statistics. When someone says a certain percent of white people get killed by black cops and then use a number for the amount of black people that get shot, of course you're going to see a skewing in numbers. You're going to see the percentage is low but the numbers are high. And that's just the simple one to point out. I don't have that many in my mind because I'm European, so I don't get that involved in the way black and white cops deal with black and white people on the streets in America. This is without considering the Asian population that has been growing tremendously in America, all around America, not just in the United States, who have also been getting their fair share of xenophobia pointed at them. This leads to what I find is the major problem with not being able to disagree properly. Violence. If someone doesn't understand how to defend their point of view, they defend it with the only things that they know how to use, usually meaning their fists. They fight. That's an extreme example, but most people would just blow a person off. Say, oh, pfft. If someone disagrees with you and can't defend their point of view, they're wrong most of the time, or at least inside of them they know that they don't have the right way of thinking. And that's when the selfish comes back and becomes aggressive, because they want to protect their self, their selfish self. All the time, that's what we do. Most people do it with more consideration and don't get very physical or very aggressive or abrasive, but still, it happens. So, to conclude this very messed up practice philosophical debate, disagreeing is one of the best powers that the human race has had for years. Disagreement has led to the greatest minds uniting as one single movement. French Revolution, although based on violence, also came from the 17th century philosophers, the 18th century writers and thinkers. The American black movement of the 60s, holy hell, these people were united for equality because they wouldn't agree with what was going on at the time when it came down to racial issues. Disagreement can be good and bad. We should always be nuancing our point of view with what the other person is saying and pick up the opinions that they have given us, because they're opinions, they're not your arms. You can lose opinions and gain new opinions and disagree, but you can't change arms. You can't lose an arm, grow another one from someone else. You should learn how to nuance your opinion because they're not you. My name is Cosmic, and this was my first ever philosophical debate on YouTube. Thank you.